I don't know about you guys, but there's something about reading a book, sitting down and just getting into the book, learning the characters, watching them grow, learning about their story, and really getting to go to like a different place. If any of you guys are as much book lovers as I am, you'll know that feeling. In today's video, I want to talk about my top 5 recommendations for self-improvement books or self-help books, and one of the top 5 that really helped me the most. Now, before we get into the video, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Bridget. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. For those of you who've never seen my channel before or don't really know who the heck I am, on this channel I talk a lot about mental health. I talk a lot about introverts and social anxiety and my story regarding that. I also talk about books. And so today is one of those videos where I'm just going to be talking about books. So if that doesn't interest you, feel free to click off. But if it does, stick around. Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful or useful. Comment below what you'd like to see more from me, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. So let's get into the video. I will say I have not always been the biggest fan of books. When I was younger, they were alright, but when I came to during the time where I was forced to read books, I was definitely not a fan of books. I would rather be doing something else. I also grew up in the time where cell phones were like just becoming popular. I didn't have my first cell phone until I was like 13, and it was one of those flip phones. It wasn't really until later in my college years where I started to actually develop and like books again. So the first book I want to talk about is Jen Sincero's How to Be a Badass, because she has a couple of books, but I think How to Be a Badass is, you know, coming out of your shell, how to embrace who you are, how to be that version of yourself that you were kind of meant to be. At this time in my life, I think this book came at like the perfect time. It was definitely at a stage where I was super confused about where I was going, super lonely, super frustrated, super just feeling like I wasn't who I was meant to be. I just felt really lost at the time, so it came into my life at a perfect time. But I think if you're struggling with just things that are super generalized, feeling lost, feeling lonely, kind of like you don't know where you're going in life, and things of that like general nature, the way in which Jen Sincero writes her books, I really feel like I'm there. I feel like she is writing directly at me when she speaks. And I love having that connection with an author when I can really, really relate to their story, and I can really relate to their feelings and their thoughts and how they kind of like view the world. How to Be a Badass really kicked me into that mindset of, you know, I can be great, I can be awesome, I can be doing the things that I really want to do. And that was one of the books that I felt like was kind of the tipping point in where I started to go in terms of my personal development journey. That was one of the main books that I would definitely recommend to anyone who wants to venture out into that world and wants to begin to not only learn about themselves, but learn about what they're capable of. Along those same lines, I didn't actually read this book, but I listened to the audio, which is just as effective, I think. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. One of the best books. At the time, I was definitely geared more to women and their side of it, and, you know, kind of more like the emotional side of things, because I'm a very sensitive person. When I listened to that book, I really felt like it hit the points that I almost didn't want to address in myself. That I definitely procrastinated. Sometimes I was lazy, and sometimes I needed to give myself the push that I wasn't giving myself, and not caring about the stupid things in life and the things that were kind of, at the time, definitely holding me back. And the way in which he writes is not, it was definitely harsh, but it was what I needed to hear. And I think at the time I just needed that perspective. I needed that push. So if you're feeling like you need to stop caring about what people are saying, and you need to stop caring that your past and your whatever, your baggage is making you stuck in this place, this is a great book to read. The third book I want to talk about is something that I was listening to and then I also read after. It was that impactful. And it's Girl Wash Your Face. This book I could not put down. First of all, it addressed a lot of the points that many of these authors were addressing in terms of, pushing yourself really hard, learning to deal with what's going on, listening to, your body and your mind is trying to tell you, but also addressing the fact that sometimes the world does scream at us. They do tell us these things, and when it is important to listen to that and when it's important to not listen to that. But what I really, really liked about the way Rachel gave this message in the book was the fact that she recounted, Jen did this too, Jen Sincero did this too in her book, but I think I related to Rachel Harris's story more because hers was very emotional, it was very sensitive, it was really addressing what was going on in her life, and she recounted, so many stories of when she was struggling. And I think just based on listening and then reading to it, I really resonated with a lot that she had to say, which made the book more meaningful to me, obviously. In terms of self-help, I like reading about people who have a lot to share about their own story. That book was so impactful in my life. The fourth book is Rising Strong. So she calls herself a social researcher. Her name is Brene Brown. She tells, again, so many stories in Rising Strong about, I guess, more of her childhood. And for me, that resonated more because I too struggled a lot in my childhood. And so a lot of what she was saying in that book was about being able to be brave and stand up for yourself in times of toughness. Now, she defines some of these very generic terms very specifically because she is a social researcher. So she also, she also talks about her findings as a researcher and how it affected these people that she was researching as well. So not only did she say something that hit with me, she also backed it up with research of what was going on with thousands and thousands of people in her work. And so for me it became, I'm this way because so-and-so and that's it. But I am this way for a particular reason. I wanted to fix whatever I was trying to fix at the time. So for me, this book became almost like, it was another tool, but it became this sort of place in which, okay, if this is happening in my life, let me try this to fix it. It also got me obsessed with Brene Brown, and which is why I read like 3 other books of hers, and I've watched endless interviews with her, and I watched the TED Talk with her, and I just love her. I also listen to her podcast. She's just very inspirational and very well educated and very inspiring. The last book I want to mention was, I guess I kind of did them in chronological order based on, what I was struggling with at the time. And the last one was, I don't want to butcher her name, but it's called The Body Is Not an Apology. And this book was a lot smaller and it was a lot more specific in terms of one particular subject, I guess you could say. All the other books I've talked about were pretty lengthy in comparison to this one, and I guess more generalized in terms of, broader topics. But this one was specifically geared towards, I guess, how you view yourself and how you view your body in terms of that. It introduced a lot of political things and things that I guess I don't really read about. And so I liked incorporating that into, I guess, all the different topics and subjects that I had up until that point read about. And the way it gave me insight into not only how I was currently viewing myself, my body, my voice, my power, and all of those things, it allowed me to recognize some of the other things around me that I was doing and that I shouldn't be or should be doing. Overall, I think it just gave me a general thought of, like, wow, I didn't really think about that before. I wasn't really considering that this is what I was doing to myself or this is what I was doing to other people. It was just something like I had never read before, so that's why I kind of wanted to include it, just in case there's anyone else out there like me who doesn't really branch out in terms of the subject matter that they read about, because that is also something now I'm trying to do even more. And I also just want to mention that all the books I mentioned were read in the span of, I think, like 2 or 3 years. And it was, again, I just want to mention when I was on that journey. I'm going to keep mentioning that journey because I really felt like I had transformed so much as a person in such a short amount of time, because it was something that I dedicated as like a major part of my life to do. I wanted to invest in myself, not just like mentally, but also I wanted to invest, I guess, like spiritually in a way, because I just kind of wanted to figure out some things about myself and internalize a lot of things and visualize where I eventually wanted myself to go. So if any of you guys are on that journey now, or if you're thinking about starting that journey, or if you just want to read a really good book, make sure you check out some of the books that I mentioned in this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, if you watched till the end, and I will see you next time.